Here we go, guys. Welcome to the first episode of the Tac-Talking series. In this series, we are going to cover different topics, different matters, different arguments that, in my opinion, are really important. We are going to analyze some of the dynamics we have in this industry regarding firearms, training, and daily life using two simple filters, the logic and the common sense. I am a big supporter, big fan of the logic. I think that logic is the main filter that should be applied in everything we do. And common sense, at the same time, is another important filter, is something that I think we are losing in this society. So by these two filters, we are going to see which are some of the false informations we can find inside this industry, which are the main points where you need to be focused on. We don't want and we don't need nothing fancy inside this series. I want just to talk with you, to share with you informations, and you're going to have the chance to leave your opinion below every time, below the episode, below the video. Today, the episode is technology versus reality. What means this? What means technology versus reality? Let's start saying that technology is for sure one of the main pillars of our society. This is worldwide. In every frame of our life, we have an inch of technology. But we need to be careful on how we manage technology. What we want, what we pretend, or what we research in technology. And this is not only in our job or in training with firearms, also in our daily life. More we use technology, more we are part of the system. And this is why, as a society, we are an assisted society. But we need to be sure to don't become too lazy using technology. So recently, for example, in the last months during the lockdown, I have seen a lot of materials, a lot of cool videos, some of the videos made by professionals, and recently, for example, I have seen some videos produced by some former SF from United States, something, I think, a kind of really amazing material, some of the best contents I have ever seen. Regarding NODs, for example, or a different approach in the CQB. And I think this is important. I think that the tactical image should change and should adapt on the times that we are living now. We need to move forward even there. And so that was a kind of approach, asymmetric approach that I really love it. But you know what? I also have seen a lot of civilians start to use on a shooting range and during training a lot of devices like NODs, like NVG devices. So the NVG technology is something that is very useful. The capability to see in the dark is something that the same things that the same value of that we have when we go underwater, the capability to go underwater, to fly, or to jump from an airplane, are kind of technologies, are kind of field of application that are very interesting and very useful in many ways, on the civilian side, on the military side, but we need to understand what we are talking about. So, first of all, I hope that in the next years, this kind of technology become pretty common, like the cell phone, with the technology we have in our cell phone. I remember years ago, to have a cell phone was something that was amazing, but now it's pretty common. You can have, and here is the same. The technology every years we do multiple steps in every field like this. So I hope that in the next years these kind of technologies become pretty normal, pretty common in our society. But for now, we need to say that first, in most of the countries, these kind of devices are not allowed for civilians, except for kind of generations that are kind of devices that are not really professional. In some other countries, like for example, United States, they can have some restrictions, depending about which kind of devices, especially for the export of this kind of devices out of the country. But out of that, the main point, in my opinion, is another. So Every time you see a cool video of a professional using NODs or using a night vision device, when you see the professional moving on the video or kind of super cool contents, you need to understand as a civilian that for each frame of that video, there are years and years of hard training, hard job, years of application and experience. It's not something that you can cut out just buying the device. It's not something that you can bypass just because you have the chance, the opportunity to buy it on the market. So if you want to buy a device, that's great. If you want to buy, if you have the capability and you are allowed to buy an NOD, a night vision device, that's great. The same process for the laser on your rifle. If you have the capability or you are allowed to use IR laser in your rifle, that's great. But we need to be real on this. And we need to say that before you buy a kind of device like that, you should train hard. You should start to work and to study and to apply years of experience in a kind of field, the low light field, that is not easy at all. And if you don't have experience on that field, if you think that you can just buy a device and you flip down your device and you start to have the capability to see in the night and that's it, you are deeply wrong. Why? Because the capability to see in the night with that kind of device, you need to match this with a firearm. So until you remain on the range, and we are talking about the range environment, so the training environment, no problem. If you remain inside the safety rules, you can do whatever you want inside the shooting range. So you can dress as you want, you can use any kind of equipment, technology, or any kind of tools or firearms. If you are allowed to use it, that's great. You can have a lot of fun and you can even start to build a little experience in that. But remember, you are inside of the shooting range environment. That is a training environment, and it is completely different than the applicative environment, the real context. So when you see a contents like that, you need to understand that not because you have the chance to buy that device, that this means automatically that you are going to have the knowledge to use the device. And you need to understand that the low light environment is completely different than the daylight environment. And the dynamics of the low light environments are very, very tough. So if you don't know nothing about front lighting, back lighting, if you don't know what means the shades, if you are not able to use a simple firearm with a flashlight, with a weapon light or hand light, and then you can arrive to a kind of device like NODs. The pretty common mistake in the civilian side. They try to use technology, and this is why, technology versus reality. They try to use technology to compensate the lack of training, the lack of knowledge, and the lack of experience. But this is wrong. And you know when you're going to discover this? You know when you're going to discover this point where you can touch with your finger this point? In the worst moment of your life, when you need it. When, I hope never, but if your life is going to be in danger in a critical event, and then is exactly the moment where you should apply everything you have learned in the years of training, if you have done something like that, I hope for you. And then you discover that all the tools, the fancy tools you have, are completely unusable because you don't have an idea how to apply in the proper way in that moment where you must do your best performance for sure at the top. Why? Because you are competing for your life. You are not anymore on the range. You can't repeat the action again. You can't call timeout. You can stop the action. The action is running, and the result of the action could be only on two sides. You can come back home, or you can survive, or you can remain on the field, or can die. In the base of your actions, that is a direct consequence of your actions. Sometimes, even if you act in the perfect way, or you are prepared, you don't have the chance to react anyway, because life is not perfect, because reality is not perfect. It's pretty different than the theory that is always perfect, especially in training. So if you sometimes, it's pretty common that everybody's dressing a super cool helmet and with super cool devices on the helmet, even during the daylight. So here I think it's a silly point to dress this during the daylight in the shooting range. One thing is, if you are outside the shooting range, if you are applying in your job, if you are working, and maybe you need to pass from outdoor to indoor environment, so you can apply, you need an NOD, a night vision device, because maybe you can find a low light or no light environment inside an indoor environment. But in the shooting range, you don't have emergency. So if you train for NVG, then it's enough that when it becomes dark, you can apply your device in your helmet. To train during the day with all the stuff, I think it's something that it's cool, but it's silly in my opinion. But again, you are free to do whatever you want. As soon as you remain inside the safety rules, for me is good everything. But be sure about one point it's very important. Keep in your mind that you need to have clear about how you dress and who you are, because it doesn't matter how you dress. What really counts is who you are. So you can dress like a professional, but if you don't have years of training, if you don't train in the proper way, if you don't use, if you didn't have experience, specific experience in that kind of field of application, you can use whatever is the device, but it's not something that it's going to be useful exactly when you need it. So, and this is the first point. Now, technology versus reality. Again, I don't want that you misunderstand me in terms of I'm a big supporter of. I hope that in the future again, all these kind of devices become a common use in our application, in this industry, and I really love this kind of tools. They're pretty cool. I'm not talking about that. I want just to be sure that the civilians. Many civilians, they need to understand that there is a big difference. There is a line between how you dress and who you are, right? And this is the point where I want to focus this episode. So, train as you fight. This is a common say that we have in this industry, and makes sense. Yes, basically it means that we should train as more as we can, using the same profile as we have in our job, in our application. Doesn't matter if we are a law enforcement, military, or civilians. We should use the same tools, the same profile that normally we have in the applicative environment and not in the training environment. But even here, I think that we should be more elastic in this kind of concept, because sometimes this concept is overvalued, like a real environment concept. That's another chapter that we are going to cover in another episode. So what means that, especially when we are in a training environment, many times we used to divide a training in multiple frames. We disassemble training in multiple frames, because in this way we have the chance to increase all the parameter of that frame, of each single frame, covering really with more accuracy each details. This means that we need to step sometimes out of the box, and we don't need to be fixed in this kind of rules. We need to be, again, smart, real, and elastic in the application of our training of our training rules. Now, to come back on the point that is technology versus reality. Another important point that you need to understand. So every time I see a civilian working with a full gear, like a super cool plate carrier, super cool helmets, super cool devices applied on the helmet, like again NVG or flashlight or whatever, AR flashlight. That's great, but if we follow this principle, train as you fight, I want to be sure that you understand this point. When you dress with all this stuff, with all your equipment in the full gear, and then we translate this in the real environment, where you have the chance to apply in that kind of profile. Maybe in your home, and maybe someone can think that, okay, I own all this stuff, I have this in my house, and in case of home invasion, I can react with the proper tools. Yes, but there is one point that you need to keep in your mind: the time. You don't have time to react in that way. Or I hope never happen, but if it's going to happen, chances that you can apply, that you have the time to dress yourself, to dress your cool helmets, to set your devices, to take your firearms from the safe, to dress your plate carrier, to dress all your gears, and then start to face with a threat, is just a dream. So we need to be real on this. You need to understand that if you're going to have just the time to grab a firearm that could be maybe for common sense, could be a handgun or whatever whatever is the platform you think that is more appropriate for your kind of environment in terms of your house, your home. And again, here remember that the ballistic environment it's subjective. So every house could be different in terms of spaces, in terms of walls, in terms of a ballistic environment. So you need to choose the proper platform and the proper ammunition that you're going to have inside your tool. But out of this, the chance that you are going to have the time to dress in that way are really, really few. And again, if you are a civilian and we are thinking about like a professional application of this kind of gears, like for example a contractor job, or if you are working on private security, let me tell you something. There are few countries in the world, maybe something that you can count in the fingers of one hand, where you can apply with that kind of profile, like a high profile with your helmet, your plate, and a full gear. And when you can do it, when you are allowed to do something like that, most of the tasks are government tasks. Forget it that as a civilian, as a private security, you can travel and dress like that in most of the countries in Africa or South America or Southeast Asia or whatever, because you are not allowed. If you start to go around the street dressed like that, you're going to be arrested in a few seconds, and you're going to discover the hospitality of some of the hotels with the bars on the windows. So this just to be real and to be clear about this kind of concept. Now, if we are talking about shooting range, if we are talking about passion, that is great. You can dress as you want. You can buy many devices as you want, or you can buy any kind of tools. If you are allowed to use it and to buy it, to own it, great. You can have a lot of fun in the range. Be sure to keep always inside the safety rules. Remember, safety always in the first place is the main filters that we apply on the shooting range, on the training environment. Safety is the main filter, and it's above everything else. But out of this, and so I'm a big supporter of that. I'm telling you that again, you can customize your firearm as you want. Yeah, the industry in this side offer you tons and tons of opportunities of components. You can find any kind of components with different prices, different qualities, different applications. And this can help you a lot. But remember, before you start to work and to apply in your rifle, in your platform, super cool red dot, top level red dot, super expensive red dot, be sure that you are able to use iron sight, that you are able to zero in your platform with your iron sight. Be sure to don't customize your firearm around your mistake. If you are doing a trigger mistake, don't change the trigger package. Work on training, because if the mistake comes by you, you need to solve by yourself the mistake. Don't using trick, but using training, using efficient training with a proper methodology, with the proper drills, you can solve the problem. When you buy a handgun, before you start to buy all the components and change everything in your platform, be sure that you learn and you are able to manipulate your platform as a professional and a standard platform, and then you can start to add all the accessories, or you start to increase the level of your platform. But don't do that if you don't have a solid base. Remember, guys, the first step that should be done always is to build a solid base on the fundamentals of shooting. This means that you need to be able to manipulate any kind of platform in the best way. If we are talking, for example, about a handgun, that is the beast, is probably the most difficult platform to be used by especially by a civilian, because it's a shorter one, and this means that it's really hard on the application. When you start to learn how to use it, you need to work on the fundamentals of shooting. You need to build your base, and you should have a solid base. As soon as you have a solid base, then you can build up whatever you want. Doesn't matter the brand of your platform, or if the platform is a single action, double action, or a striker. If you know how to use a handgun, you will be able to use any kind of handguns without problem. Sure, there are handguns that are better, platforms that are better than others in terms of quality, or are more appropriate in the base of your needs. And this is the big advantage you have as a civilian. You can choose your platform. You can choose your platform in the base of your needs, in the base of your application, and you can customize your platform from that. But remember, you need to face a threat will be the first and the only weapon you're going to have is your brain and you. So, in my opinion, we should use technology to increase our performances, to increase our skills, to make us better shooters, to help us and support us in a kind of environment like our not permissive environment, like in a tough environment where the support of technology it's really important. And at the same time, we need to be sure that we don't need to abuse of our technology, and we don't use technology to try to compensate lack of training, lack of hard job, and lack of experience.